Welcome to CRE Power Hour. Hello, my name is Lisa Marie Wand, and my co-host is Stephanie Gillison. And we spent the last 2 decades growing and scaling our businesses. Together, we're bringing you a new space for you to learn alongside the best of us in the real estate business at CRE Power Hour. Today, our guest is Robert Politzer, and we're so excited to have him on our show. We do have a live audience joining us today, and we're so glad you're here. So please say hi in the chat and let us know where you're from. And we welcome you to ask questions during the show. Let's get right into it. Hey, Robert, how are you doing?
Hi, Lisa Marie. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. And you have an amazing background. Robert is the president and founder of GreenStreet of New York and GreenStreet New York. Under Robert's leadership, GreenStreet has grown from an environmental testing and abatement company into an innovative building development and consulting firm operating primarily out of New York City and in Florida. So you have lots of credentials, Robert. You also have a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's in environmental policy. And you have 2 master's degrees, huh, Robert?
I do. I have 2 master's degrees. Yep. University of Michigan and Manhattan College.
That's awesome. So I'm excited to have you here today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what's happening with these environmental trends in commercial real estate? Bring us up to speed on some of the new certifications and just what's happening out there in the commercial world with making what I would say better buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. And, what I want to start with then, given that introduction, that lead in, is that so I've been involved with green building since 1998. We started the first green building company in New York City. And over the years, what I've come to learn and understand is that a smart, high performance green building, when it is designed and renovated or constructed with a group of knowledgeable, experienced professionals, will result in a higher performing building that will have lower operating costs, will be healthier for occupants to live and work in, and by virtue of the lower operating costs, will have higher net operating income and provide superior valuation. So I've known that for quite some time. However, there's been this notion, especially in commercial real estate, that smart buildings cost more. The first cost problem was always a concern. That sounds great, but building owners always thought that that's what they were getting themselves into. So very often these property owners would pause and not move forward. And what they didn't understand, frankly, which I'm going to talk to more of as we go through this, is that in fact, a smart building upgrade, when done properly, especially utilizing 100% financing that we can bring to the table, is the best investment a commercial property owner can make today. There is no better investment on Wall Street or anywhere else that will improve, that will be superior in performance than a commercial building, smart building upgrade to commercial buildings. So what's happening? There's a lot that's happening to your question, Lisa. It's, in fact, I believe that this is a historic moment in commercial real estate. I've heard one banker refer to this moment as the greatest change to commercial real estate since the Industrial Revolution. So first and foremost, there is ESG scoring that is going to be applied to every single commercial building throughout the United States. ESG stands for environmental, social, governance. For quite some time, corporations had ESG scores applied to their companies. Now ESG scoring can be applied to buildings. And these ESG scores are going to effectively act like a FICO score. So a commercial building that gets a low ESG score is going to be harder to finance, more expensive to refinance. It will literally lower the valuation of a property. So that's a huge factor that's coming into play now. Conversely, to upgrade an ESG score on a building will improve the value of the building. And doing these upgrades, we are making it collectively between GreenStreet and EXP, we're going to make that very, very easy to get done. So first and foremost, there's ESG scoring. It's going to be coming to a commercial building that you
near
know
you.
about. That's right. That's right. All over.
Coming to a commercial building near you, Robert. And
Near
let me
you.
ask you this: how this may be a pretty big sell to the owner of a commercial building, especially with what's been happening with the pandemic and, cash is king, having cash in the bank, being fluid. And so give me a little bit of the conversation about how trusted advisors like myself and all the other commercial real estate agents and brokers out there watching, Robert, what's the conversation they could have about the value add for upping their green status?
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. So I do want to add this. So along with ESG scoring that's happening on a national level, there are also additional local laws and regulations that are applying to building upgrades. So for example, in New York City, there's local law 97, which actually is going to require carbon emission reductions, and failure to reduce carbon emissions is going to lead to very, very high fines. And that's true in other markets as well. In Chicago and LA, other local large urban markets are going to have their own local laws and requirements that will go above and beyond the ESG. So how then, as agents, how do we work this? Well, how we work this is by integrating ESG upgrades and or smart building upgrades as integral to the commercial transaction process. So I'll give you first, I want to give you an analogy. When a car gets turned in, let's say a leased vehicle gets turned into an auto dealership, that auto dealership is not going to just put that car back on the market. They're going to take the car, they're going to send it to their mechanic shop where they're going to tune up the car, make it look nice and pretty, then they'll put it back on the market. And it turns out that in commercial real estate, we don't do that. We find out the current net operating income, and we take a competitive cap rate, and we divide the NOI by the cap rate, and that's how we get to the valuation. This value add brokerage approach is really much more like the auto dealership approach. So what can we do? So when we're reaching out to owners to pitch them to get a listing agreement, which of course is gold for us. That's what we want as agents. We ultimately want listing agreements, exclusive listing agreements with owners and sellers, because when you got a good listing agreement, you could always find buyers, but the reverse is not necessarily the case. When you're working with buyers, you can't always find what they want on the sell side. So what's the value proposition to an owner? Dear Mr. So-and-so owner, let's say in New York City, we can start by upgrading your building. We can first audit your building for ESG score. Then we can look to improve the ESG scoring performance, which is going to help you refinance, help improve the value of the building and the likes. Then we can start, beyond that, we can start moving towards compliance with local law 97. As we start working on the building, we're going to be lowering we're going to make the building more energy efficient, thereby lowering the operating expenses, increasing the net operating income, and increasing the value of the building. So the beauty here then is, give us 4 months to do this work, Mr. Building Owner. And then at that time, you can decide, now that your building's worth more, to sell the building. And we'll be there to sell the building with you. And we'll sell the building for more than you would have otherwise gotten if you would have gone down the conventional pathway. This, of course, is great for us because then our fees are going to increase.
What are you seeing as far as leveraging to make all of these ESG improvements, especially if someone's doing this short term, Robert? Let's say they plan on selling their building within the next 12 months. It takes them 4 months to do the improvements that are recommended by GreenStreet or by an ESG certified agent or broker. And then let's say it's 6 months to sell the property. And so that's, let's say 12 to 18 months. Are building owners leveraging short-term financing, or what's that look like?
So that's the other beauty of our program, especially in New York City with local law 97, because on the downside, for building owners who do not upgrade their buildings as per the requirements, there are very, very large fines that are associated with the law, right? We can utilize 100% low-cost financing. it's going to cost on the order of 5 to 7% typically. And we have a network of finance providers to bring that financing. So somebody who wants to finance the project themselves, that's fine. However, these days, most commercial building owners just barely squeaked through COVID and probably had to take on a lot of extra loans and whatever to stay afloat. And so they can't add more debt. So there are various ways to bring in this low cost financing. There's one strategy through Constellation where we can bring 100% financing, and it's off balance sheet financing. So it won't get in the way of conventional financing.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So you're talking specifically about New York, and I know about this because we spent a month together in the Accelerate class. I've also looked at your great email. So Robert sends out some really great information that especially applies to what's happening in the New York area right now. So let's expand our view to other places, let's say Las Vegas or LA or Miami, that don't have these types of guidelines yet. So there's got to be, you know, our property owners and our landlords are always looking to improve their net operating expense. And just like when you put solar on a house, you know, here in Nevada, let's say for a house that's 2,200 square feet, it's going to cost you like 40 grand to put solar on your house. You'll finance that. And it's going to take you a long time to make the money back on that 40,000 on a house. Let's apply that principle to a building that's not in New York and eminently subjected to these guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So our smart building upgrade program that we run in New York City for local law 97, we refer to as compliance as a service. Outside of New York City, we can run the very same program in any major urban marketplace, utilizing basically the same set of services, the same financing strategies. It's just that we don't have to go as far outside of New York City, Chicago, and LA, where these local laws require more aggressive building upgrades. In those markets that don't yet have these local laws, we can use the same program, same financing, same building upgrades, same lowering of expenses, increasing NOI and valuation. So the program's going to work in any major urban marketplace. And here's the thing, you know, what I'm trying to educate owners about, and I'm a property owner myself, so I'm speaking as a property owner and developer. I'm not speaking as, you know, an engineer, you know, speaking from 30,000 feet above ground. Think of this as an incredible opportunity. The farther you go with the opportunity, the more it's going to pay dividends. It's as simple as that. Every BTU of energy that you save in your building, every kilowatt hour that you save in your building is a savings. Every ton of carbon that you lower in your building, it's going to be a savings for you. It all goes to your bottom line. So I like to say, forget, you know, substitute the word smart for green. Okay. A smart green building is going to be a higher performing building from a financial point of view. So when you use this 100% financing at 5 to 7%, the ROI on these building upgrades, especially energy efficiency upgrades, is typically 20 to 30%. So it's a no-brainer. It costs you 5% for your financing. You get 20 to 30% on ROI. Show me a better investment than that.
Well, now you're talking my language, Robert. Now, giving me that financial, just that high level example helps me start running the numbers. I'm a property owner as well. And I'm always thinking about making the best experience for my tenants and then leveling that out with making making my profit as a building owner. And so that just those basic numbers. And the energy improvements are recession proof, right? Because everybody's looking at, you know, inflation and are we going to have a recession? And, you know, who knows? So, you know, we have a live audience today, Robert. We have quite a few people tuning in. We have some repeat visitors. So hello to all of you. And we have some new faces I haven't seen. So welcome. This is a live show. So please, in the chat, our producer, Katie, is monitoring. Go ahead and let us know, if you haven't, where you're from and what's your business, because we do have commercial real estate agents and brokers here, and we have a much wider audience. And if you have any questions for myself or Robert, please type them into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And Robert, tell me about what you would say. Now, I know this is a kind of a big picture question. However, I'm thinking about when we're on the phone with clients and having a, a quick conversation, or we're introducing this idea. What have you seen are the most bang for your buck improvements that a property owner could make on a commercial building?
Yes, that's a great question. We refer to that as the low-hanging fruit.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yes, right. So, first and foremost, there are services that we can bring to the table that are intended to do one thing, which is to save the client money with no obligation. So even before you start working on the building, there are services to utilize to start saving you money. Best example, you always any upgrade, any work at all in the building from energy efficiency point of view, you have to start with getting all the utility bills and contracts. That's this first step regardless. So once we or any professional has copies of all the utility bills and contracts, the super smart thing to do is to do a utility audit. And we work with a company called National Utilities Refund. They do this all over the country.
Will you say the name National Utilities Refund?
Yes, that's the name of this company that we work with, National Utilities Refund. They do professional quality audits around the country. They will audit 6 different utilities: gas, electric, sewer, water, waste, and telecom, for no cost. They find savings 72% of the time. When they find savings, they split the savings 50-50 with the owner for 36 months, after which time all the savings goes to the owner. The worst that comes of this audit is you find out that you have not been grossly overbilled, which happens very often. That's the worst of that. But this is found money. Start with a utility audit, okay? Then there's insurance strategies to look at to lower your insurance costs. And there's
Robert, let me stop you for 1 second and ask you a question. So I know that most major utility companies will offer you a free audit. Is this utility audit you're talking about like 10x? They dig deeper?
Yes,
What's
they
the
have their
difference?
own staff, and I the fox guarding the hen house. I mean, you're not going to you want an independent company to be doing this audit, not the utility, for God's sakes. I mean, but so this is a super simple strategy. If you're talking about a large commercial building and they're in a marketplace where they get hit with an annual peak assessment for their peak power output, we've got another company we work with called C-Power. They'll do a peak power assessment, and they've got strategies to lower your peak power for no cost. This can be hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings in big urban markets. We've got a tax company. They'll do a no cost benefit analysis for cost segregation or other types of tax strategies. Then there's insurance options as well. So all these strategies you can start with, and you haven't even started in the building yet. Once we start in the building, typically what you want to do is you want to work from the building shell inward. So in other words, ideally you want to start by making the building shell as energy efficient as possible. So that could be air sealing, extra insulation, installing new windows.
So we could say airtight is out of sight, right?
Airtight is where it's at, baby. Now, airtight with mechanical ventilation, of course, with heat recovery. This is building science, okay? This is what the new state-of-the-art building science is all about. A really tight, energy, highly insulated building shell is the place to start whenever possible, okay? So then, once you do that, then usually the next step is lighting, doing an LED lighting up.
Yes.
And
change those light bulbs.
For God's sakes, I mean, my colleagues and I, we scratch our heads. It's like sometimes we feel like we're getting down on our knees and like praying, or the Jews will say they're davening, to the owner, right? Like, please, Mr. Owner, let us save you money. That's kind of the way it feels, because we have so many strategies to save these building owners money. An LED lighting upgrade is such a no-brainer. We can get it financed 100%. The return on investment, again, is usually 30 to 50%, depending on how inefficient your existing lighting is. Absolute no-brainer. And yet, I'll go into a lot of old buildings, you'll see these old fluorescent tube lighting. And
some of them even make this little sound like bzzz,
yeah,
some of those old lights. So when I first got into real estate, which was quite a few years ago, I owned a real estate brokerage, Robert, and I leased a large space from a landlord, and they had just completed a green update on their building. And the building I was in before was so much, it was older and it just wasn't as updated. So I know as a tenant there for quite a few years, I really appreciated the fact that they had done things like updated the lighting, the window cut, the film on the windows. There was upgraded the HVAC system. There was a lot of different things that they did to create a smart building. And so I really appreciated that. So like switching to the tenant side, do you feel like that's a value add for leasing a space, especially office space? At this point, we're seeing more vacancies than we were in the past.
Absolutely. So there are a number of studies that have documented that that office workers perform significantly better in an interior space that has lots of daylight, lots of natural light, and that has really good ventilation. I mean, this is dollars and cents. There's a quick aside here. Some years back, Walmart did a study. They took one side of a store and they installed skylights. The other side of the store did not have skylights. So they did a study looking at sales. Okay, so everything they had in one side, what they did was, after a while, looking at sales, they reversed the products. So those products that were in the daylit space get into,
so they're doing some A/B testing on the lighting, on the natural lighting.
And they found that the daylit space led to significantly higher shopping trends, more product being sold. Daylight is one of the is critically important for health and well-being.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. And we have so many people working from home now. I know for myself, being a commercial real estate broker, I'm on my computer a lot if I'm not out with clients, and my eyes get fatigued over the course of a day from Zoom meetings and emails and just all that kinds of stuff. So the lighting makes a huge difference. The other thing I noticed made a huge difference in my office, because I do have a brick and mortar office, is I brought in air filtration units. Now mine are portable because I don't have the whole building. I'm one of probably 100 tenants in my building. And my staff and agents in my office noticed a huge difference when I brought in those HEPA air filtration systems. So is that part, I know you said ventilation, is that part of the filtration as well? Because it's a bigger concern as well with COVID and monkeypox and all this crazy business we have going on.
So as a matter of fact, one of my absolute favorite colleagues, he's really been a pioneer. He has what he refers to as clean air as a service. He will install COVID and other related technology in buildings for no cost to the owner. And he does it because how he does it is that he, in his installation, he has some energy efficiency upgrades he does, and he utilizes those energy efficiency upgrades essentially to pay for the project. Okay, so that's another strategy that can be done upfront. That's really smart. So yeah, I mean, indoor air quality, of course, now post-COVID is a huge deal, and and absolutely should be included with a smart building upgrade. Yeah, so
so we've asked from our live audience today, what are some of the upgrades that they think people would like to see in commercial buildings? We have a couple of responses here. We have HVAC, of course. Isn't that the worst, especially in an office building where one office is freezing cold and the other people are, have the fans going. lighting controllability, that is great. I know in my personal office, I'm always adjusting the blinds and the lights, because as the day goes on, I want less bright light in my eyes when I'm on my computer.
Hold it right. That's,
Clean.
that's a perfect example of a smart building. So so there are sensors, real-time sensors, right? Real-time daylight sensors. So if you have a well daylit space, all that counts is how many lumens of light are hitting the surfaces that you're looking at, right? You can get those lumens from artificial light or from natural light. The more lumens you get from natural light, the better. So the point is, I walk into offices and they've got natural light, but they got all their lights on because they don't have that real-time integration between their sensors and their daylight. In a smart building, the artificial lighting will be toned down as the natural lighting is greater, and vice versa. So
exactly. You cut out the human factor because, you know,
Right.
people maybe don't understand it or they're too busy. Let's see, we've got some other comments here. Clean air, and then, which we talked about briefly, and then smart glass. That's awesome. Would smart glass be part? We all need some smart glass. It's so true. Would that be part of the ESG upgrades?
It could be. That would be part of a smart building upgrade. So, you know, so smart glass is a perfect example of smart building. So what's happening now is that there are a number of building components. Glass is one of them. Roofing materials, where they were designed for like one purpose, like, you know, windows are designed for allowing daylight to come in and views, right? Roofing materials, basically to keep out water and the likes, right? But certain of these materials are starting to get added additional features. So for example, glass, that's almost always going to be, you know, receiving sunlight, direct sunlight, especially if it's to the south, and these days can easily include solar film in the window, so that the windows are both, you know, glazing.
Yeah, so it's dual purpose.
That's right, dual purpose. That's right.
Yeah, same thing with the roof tiles. We're seeing more like the roof tiles being turned into solar tiles, things like that.
Yep. That's
So
right.
let's talk about. I have so I'm also a certified commercial mentor. So I mentor new and experienced real estate agents all across the United States. And there's a couple of people that work with me as their mentor. And one of them in particular who's here, Rebecca, she's very interested in or signed up for the ESG certification. Can you talk to our live audience today about what that is and how they can find out more information? And then we'll be happy. We've already plugged your information into the chat for people so they can connect with you.
Yeah. So right now, the status of the program with EXP is that EXP is partnered with the ESG Lab. There's a company that was formed that to design a training and accreditation program. So I personally have taken the first of 3 courses. There's 3 classes you have to take, online classes you have to take to get your credential to be able to do the auditing. So you can go to their website, ESG Lab, and you can sign up for the training. And there is a cost, of course, but I know that they had a little issue with their second and third course that they're correcting right now, but you can get started with their introductory class. So you got to get that, you got to get the training done, and you got to get the credential. Then EXP is working with various, you know, partners to be bringing in leads for ESG audits. So in New York, like I've got a call later today, we're going gangbusters. We've got.
I bet you are, with all the legislation that's, you know, right upon you and all the building owners and landlords in New York.
Yes, absolutely. But we're engaging, EXP is engaging with national players that are going to be wanting their properties across the country to be audited. So EXP is going to have a growing number of opportunities for audits for agents who are both, you know, signed up as EXP commercial agents and who get the ESG credential to do the audit. So the beauty is, once you have that credential and you start doing these audits, that's going to crack open the door as an introduction to the building owners in a way that I think is almost impeccable. Because then you have good news to bring to them that, oh, your score is a little low. Not to worry. We have a program to upgrade your score. Now we're the heroes. We can upgrade the score, increasing their building valuation. And then that opens up. Now we've improved your building valuation, Mr. Owner. Maybe you would consider selling the property. We're here to represent you as the sales agent then.
Somebody in our live chat today said something really funny, Robert. I want to share it with you. It says, Alexa, activate smart glass. Isn't that great? You can imagine, having like in the sci-fi movies from the 70s and 80s, that all of that stuff is really coming true. And that's pretty amazing. So tell me about, okay, so I've been a commercial real estate broker for, quite a many years. I even thought about getting my general contractor's license at one time, but I've decided to stay in my lane and do what I'm great at and do what I love. How do you see this kind of being a trusted advisor for these smart green buildings? How do you see that fitting into, the people out there listening, their commercial real estate business?
Yes. So to get started, I would absolutely, first and foremost, I would get my ESG auditing credential and just getting started doing some audits. After you start doing some audits, get more familiar with the program, then we collectively can help you to work on the ESG upgrade for these building owners, of which you would get compensated as well as a next step. And now to take the building to the next level of energy performance, the ESG upgrade is probably only going to get things started to a certain level, right? To go beyond that is where you need a deeper level of expertise to be involved. So frankly, I would say if you have a project where you've got an owner that wants to do a deeper dive, please reach out to me. We have, that's where our innovation hub comes in. That's exactly the strength of our innovation hub, because we've been doing this work for 20 odd years. We've got commercial construction managers to bring to the table.
Okay.
The construction manager, it's a more involved project to do the deeper dive. You need a construction manager. Oftentimes you will need an engineer to design the whole project. That becomes a much more complicated upgrade, but you can get things started with the ESG.
Okay, so let me circle back on that question just a little bit. And my question is, we have a commercial real estate agent who's, working their sphere of influence and building their business and helping people buy and sell and lease commercial real estate. And then along comes this smart green building. How do you see our viewers today, or someone that's watching this recording later on, how they can intertwine this into their business without going down the rabbit hole? Because what it sounds like to me is there are so many different layers of how this could be good for a building owner and also be part of the value proposition for an agent. How can someone go about doing their job and not just focusing specifically on this? So what's the value proposition from the agent? Getting some certification, some basic certification. It means you're not an expert, but you know enough to be dangerous, right? And to have the conversation. So can you talk about it from the agent perspective, just for a few minutes, if you could?
Well, so one of the coolest things about EXP, really, truly amazing, is that there is the embracing of this notion of value add brokerage, which is in contradiction to almost every large commercial brokerage house I've ever known or been affiliated with.
Agreed.
I want to stay in their box. No, don't bring anything else into the mix. You're gonna confuse the owner. Right?
Well, because that box is safe for a lot of people.
Right.
They know that we're going to get this listing and we're going to do these certain things. We're going to stay in our lane. We're going to help this client. We're going to collect some commission and we're going to move on to the next. And EXP is definitely not like that. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So now in a time when there was no penalty to own and operate a poorly run building. You know, it was, you know, like the race to the bottom, which you have, you know, a lot of like, you know, modest and lower income housing. It's, you know how it is, right? It's like the owners do absolutely the minimal, absolutely, right?
It's like I call it the MacGyver approach, Robert. It's like some, you know, a stick of gum, some duct tape,
Right.
you know, maybe a paper clip, keep it all together.
To keep,
It's a strategy, not a winning strategy, but it's a
lower,
strategy.
to lower their first cost. So here's the analogy. I love the car analogy. It's the guy or the gal who's driving a 25-year-old car that hasn't been, you know, tuned up for some time, belching out smoke in the back of the car, getting terrible gas mileage, but they don't want to spend the money up front to invest in a new car or even to get the car tuned up. So they'll just run it in this really rotten way. Meanwhile, those of us driving behind them are getting all this smoke,
We're just like,
right? And meanwhile, they're belching out these extra emissions into the atmosphere. And in a time of our growing climate crisis, what we know now is that doesn't come for free. People think of the atmosphere as a free sewer. Let's face it. Oh,
that's disgusting, but it's true. It's true in a lot of ways.
I can dump whatever I need to into the air. I mean, the atmosphere, it's vast. What am I going to do? Well, it turns out that our carbon emissions, what they're doing is it's literally like increasing the thickness of the glass that is surrounding that is in the atmosphere, that is leading to more and more and more heat being stored on planet Earth. That's why we are heating up, because we have increased, if you will, just like a greenhouse. When you increase the glass, the depth, the thickness of the glass in a greenhouse, it's going to trap more heat. It's going to get hotter.
Well, and plus our ozone layer is thinning. So here's a perfect example, Robert. I was just in Alaska, and I just got back a few days ago, and we went to Glacier Bay National Park, where you can see these huge glaciers right from the water. It's the kind of place you can only get there by a boat or a plane or a helicopter. And I saw pictures from 4 short years ago of the same glacier, and it had reduced by such a vast amount. It was sad to me because I'd never been to Alaska before, and the only word that could describe that is it's just vast and magical. And so we don't always think about that when we're sitting in our office, and it's true. So, here we have another question from one of our live audience. It's great that there's 100% financing for improving the ESG score. How can we learn more about how this works? Can you give us like a little condensed version on that?
Yes, to be accurate. So we, through GreenStreet, my company, we have a network of lenders who will lend towards energy efficiency projects. And by the way, lenders love to lend towards energy efficiency projects because they're very, very safe. Because what they know is that energy efficiency investments always return a significantly higher rate of return than the cost of the financing. Always, that's the goal. You know, there's like a vein of gold inside almost every commercial building, and the older and poorer running the building, the deeper that vein of gold is. And it's energy efficiency. It's right there in front, under our feet. And when you know how to tap into it, it yields fantastic returns, right? So for our local law 97 compliance, we have 100% financing. ESG upgrades, we're working on it now. The thing about ESG upgrades is there are a number of upgrades that are modest that, you know, we don't know yet. You know, we have to see how we can get those modest, you know, upgrades financed. For local law 97, these are usually projects, 100,000, $500,000, over $1 million. So these lenders like to fund that. But when you go too low, a lot of these lenders are not interested. So ESG upgrades, we're still working on it. But for local law 97, we can bring that.
I mean, even a lighting project could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in a building. Absolutely. So I'm not sure about these like small upgrades unless you had a really small building. Yeah, I'm curious. We'll have to get more information on that. I'm wondering if there is any SBA loan programs also that would cover smart green building upgrades.
There are some. Listen, there are also local, state, and federal incentives that help to incentivize building owners in various ways to offset some of the soft costs or hard costs. There's so many ways in which today, as we sit here, upgrading commercial buildings with a smart building upgrade is such a great investment. Forget green, forget save the earth. When we're talking to building owners, Mr. or Miss Building Owner, this is the best investment I can possibly bring to you, is to help you upgrade your building. And after we upgrade your building and it's worth more, what we can do then is we can sell your building, right, for a higher valuation. We can take those proceeds and put you into a 1031 exchange into an even larger building. And then after you close on the new building, we can do the same upgrade to your new building. And so this can be a whole lifetime of really being essentially being, part of their team of, working on their valuation of their portfolio.
Yeah, their trusted advisor, which is always our goal at EXP, is to be a trusted advisor to our clients.
Right.
And okay, we have another question here. And then I have some questions I want to ask you before we wrap today, Robert. This has been very interesting. Okay, Rebecca says, her NorCal local municipality is focused on zero emission and diversity programs. She says, I'm finding my way into City Hall to make connections with the decision makers. Any suggestions on which department I should focus my attention on? Is it planning or is it something else?
This is Northern California, right?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is that you want to get the lay of the land in terms of all of the existing laws and regulations that are on the books, that if they haven't already hit, they're going to be coming soon, right? Just like New York City Local Law 97 starts officially in 2024. Find out exactly, and of those laws, there are going to be one or two of the laws that are going to be sort of more potent, if you will, have more, potential liability for the owner, right? Whatever agency is involved with that law, that's sort of king of the laws. That's where I would start. That's, because that's where you're going to get the most amount of movement from these building owners. But I might be jaded because I've had experience with New York City bureaucracy. And
you mean, wait a minute, Robert, you're from New York and you're a little jaded? No, say it isn't so.
Well, I'm from Chicago originally, so
me too. That we talked about that. I'm from the north side of Chicago.
Oh, yep. That's great. Yeah. So bureaucracy, it's got its place. I'm not going to get it all political here. It's got its place, and frankly, we need.
Well, that's good because we're not a political show. We may be a lot of things that we are politically neutral.
That's right. And, we need these government mandates or regulations to get building owners to do the right thing. But then we want them to get out of the way and let us professionals who know what the hell we're doing do the actual work on these buildings. Right.
Yeah.
So I would not, especially early on, waste all that much time trying to reach out to bureaucrats and thinking that you're somehow going to influence them. I think that's really, really most likely you're going to be wasting a lot of time. I would find out first and foremost all the regulations that are going to apply to these commercial buildings and these building owners, and the ones again that could harm them the most financially, the ones with the biggest teeth, the ones with, and then
I hear you. Yeah.
And then from there, I'm more than happy. We're going to be opening up in California somewhat soon. We've got a growing network out there. We can help work on California projects. So we could work in conjunction with anyone who's in California right now. If you do some of this legwork, if you identify some property owners who have a problem, which is what you want, right? A problem with one of these regulations, then we can work on a building specific upgrade program. And to add the optimal amount of value, and then you could integrate that into your transaction process.
Perfect. And Rebecca, I'm licensed in California as well, as you know, and my suggestion for initial cursory conversations would be planning, zoning, maybe the city council, or call the mayor's office of your town and let them know that you're a commercial real estate agent very focused on smart, clean, green buildings in the area, and you want to find out about any existing or upcoming legislature so that you can help the business owners in the community to be ahead of the curve on that. And there's your value proposition, as you already know, that fueled by EXP Commercial and all the tools and strategic partnerships we have, you'll be on your way to a very successful business. So keep us posted on that. And let's see. So I have some questions that Stephanie and I like to ask all of our guests. So we'll see if we can get through those because we have about 8 or 10 minutes left, Robert. And my first question is, what's the main lesson that you learned in your commercial real estate business or in your life in general going through the pandemic for the last couple of years? What was your big takeaway personally or professionally?
Well, first and foremost, that it was already moving in this direction, but that I can do about 98% of all my business on my smartphone, which is truly extraordinary. And by the way, that's so much in keeping with the whole model of EXP, right?
Yeah.
That now what used to be all real is now virtual, and you don't really skip a beat. That's one thing, of course, that I learned.
We've heard that from a lot of our guests on CRE Power Hour.
Yeah.
Many people have said, I've learned that I can do what I do better and leaning into technology and actually, we've talked about how you can, with our virtual model at EXP, how you can even meet more people and make more connections. I know for myself, I've met people all around the world,
Yes.
being in this leadership position with EXP Commercial. And the other thing we've heard, and this may be true for you, tell me, is that getting back to being more connected with your family and your friends and the people that are important to you.
And my doggie.
Well, our four-legged friends are part of that, right? They're part of our family.
Sure. I mean, it's so nice to take a break and play with my dog. How awesome
Yeah.
is that? Yeah, and the other big lesson is that I don't need an office for most of what I do. And that's in New York, for like $2,500 a month, maybe you get a window in your little cubicle office.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And
awful.
not even a smart window.
No, that's right. So yeah.
Well, isn't that ironic though, that we're learning to work without offices and we're in the business of commercial real estate, and
Yes.
one of the asset classes that we work with is office buildings. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Yeah, one of our live audience typed in diversification. Yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, here's my favorite question. I'd love to hear the answers from our special guests. And Robert, tell us, what is your secret sauce?
My secret sauce. I think I get told that I'm a passionate person, and a lot of people like passion. I think, some kind of combination of passion and authenticity. I didn't just happen into this. This has been basically my whole life has led in this direction. I feel that my mission in life is to help to transform the commercial marketplace and make it much more sustainable. And so I don't go to work every day. I engage with my mission every day. And so I'm very mission oriented. I believe I'm very authentic about it. I'm very passionate about it.
From just knowing you for a short bit of time, Robert, I would absolutely second what you said about passion. It comes through when you're speaking about your company and about making the commercial environmental sphere happier, healthier, smarter. And that authenticity, especially as the world has become more virtual, those authentic relationships have become so much more important, and really focusing on how we can help each other. That's how we get business done these days from my perspective. And so when you don't have the authenticity, like how often have you talked to someone even just on the phone and you can tell right away that they're disingenuous, they're not thinking about you, they're just like, I have to get through this phone call, or I have to get through this script, or let me tell you what I want or what I need from you. And so I really appreciate that authenticity. You fit right in at CRE Power Hour. And we've got just a few minutes left. So if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the live chat. And here's my final question for you, Robert, giving people a chance to type in some things here. What would you say over the course of the next 12 months, from today going forward for 12 months, what's the best advice you could give to commercial real estate professionals and all the ancillary services involved with that in creating the most successful business, growing their best business over the next 12 months? What's your take on that?
ESG, 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 ESG.
What was that? One more time?
ESG.
ESG.
To the fourth power.
You know how they do like the YMCA? We could do that for I don't know how we would do that. We need to practice, but ESG.
It's going to be the biggest factor in commercial real estate by far. And it's not the thing, most commercial brokers won't have a clue about it, because most commercial brokers don't have a clue about green buildings, smart buildings. They just sell the buildings. So become an ESG expert, get your credential as soon as possible, and be known as somebody who has this value add brokerage that you can bring to the table. You can bring a lot more value to the owners and the sellers and buyers by virtue of your ESG credential and being part of EXP and all the network that they bring to these owners.
That's an awesome answer. And if any of you out there are interested in learning more about the unique business model we have at EXP, easy for me to say, please reach out to myself or Stephanie. Our producer has dropped our contact information in the chat, as well as Robert's contact information. And I wanted to let you know our next show is in 2 weeks. So we're on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday. So on the 2nd Wednesday, June 8th, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll have Cindy Santalena. She'll be our guest. She's with Harvest Bank, and they're a national commercial and SBA lender. And we're super excited to have her with us. And Robert, it's been a pleasure as usual. I think we could go on and on. We're going to have you come back, because I have so many questions and like ideas just popping in my brain here. So when we're down the road a little bit, would you come back and be our guest again?
Sure thing. I'd love to.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Follow our podcast on Spotify, and you can also see previous episodes at crepowerhour.com. And thank you so much for being our guest today. Go out and be great. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.